The 533rd edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
And that could make a difference. Lawson at the buzzer. Got it! Maybe not. Ty Lawson wins it at the buzzer.
Deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Gets the roll. Here we go. Page has it. Carolina down one. 84-83. Page into the front court with 4 seconds. Page to the rim. Got it! He got it! 9/10 of a second to go. Inbounds. Washington gets it to Warren. His full court shot. No good. Marcus Page baby. Does it for the Tar Heels. Carolina wins it.
Don't force it if you're Goss.
Comes in. Blocked by Meeks. Buried up ahead to Jackson. And he tucks it down for the 5-point lead. Matthews off the mark. And this year the confetti is going to fall for North Carolina. They're not going to be denied this time. Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony coming at you live on a Wednesday night, the second night of the first four round of the NCAA tournament. But of course, Carolina has already advanced into the round of 64. They'll take on Ole Miss on Friday afternoon. That game is scheduled to tip around 4 p.m. On TNT from Milwaukee, and we're here to preview that game. We're here to tell you everything you need to know about the Rebels, look at the game from Carolina's perspective, give our keys to the game, and, of course, our predictions. But we start every edition of the pod, as we always do, with the pod thought of the day. It's been the same pod thought now for going on 2 weeks, last week during the ACC tournament, this week now during the NCAA tournament. It's the foundation of this program. It's the words that we live by as Carolina basketball fans is play hard, play smart, and play together. And I say it all the time, and I truly mean it, and I truly believe it. When Carolina does those three things, year in, year out, it usually leads to really good results. It usually means that they're going to win a lot of games, they're going to play on the biggest stage, and have a chance to do some special things. And that's what this team has done. And really, in each of their last 11 games, they have done all three of those things. 9 of them have been wins. 2 of them have been losses. And the 2 losses hurt because of who they were in terms of your biggest rival, the Duke Blue Devils. But, Duke has, I think, established itself as maybe the best, or if not the second best team in the country. And in those 2 losses, Carolina has been very competitive and had chances to win both of those games in the second half, just did not make the plays that they've had to make. But what they've done in the other 9 games has been incredible. It's been remarkable because it's been pure domination. It's been pure blowout city where they're not just beating opponents, they're blowing out opponents, and they'll have to play hard, play smart, and play together if they want to beat a really quality Ole Miss team on Friday and advance into the second round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're getting to the point now in the schedule where you are facing legitimate opponents every time that you step on the court. Not to say that they are on the same level as Duke. Certainly that is not the case. But you are facing teams that now fit into that quad 1 billing where you had so many issues winning games this year. Now you're getting to that point in the tournament. And so they played hard, they played smart, and they played together against San Diego State, maybe better than any time this season. And now the question is, can they sort of carry that over into this game against an Ole Miss team that, yeah, they can score the ball, But much like a lot of the teams in the SEC, they are not the greatest defensive team. There are weaknesses to their game. So it's really going to be about Carolina playing their game. We've talked about controlling the pace of games. That's something that Carolina wasn't able to do a lot of early in the season. If they're able to do that in this game against Ole Miss, you have to feel pretty confident that they can come away with the victory, because it's starting to get to that point. We're looking, if you haven't filled out your brackets yet, you got to be filling them out here within the next few hours. This is one of the most popular 11-6 upset picks. I mean, I think just about every 11-6 game, it could be an upset. You could see it happening. But I think this one is certainly one that can happen, because I think that Ole Miss is a flawed team.
Yeah, and I do think that Carolina enters the game playing a better brand of basketball, a higher level of basketball. And I think one of the talking points, one of the narratives is did the SEC season get Ole Miss prepared to do some damage in March? Or did it maybe beat them up a little bit and a team like Carolina, who's been pushed, even though the ACC not as good, not as deep, but the way they looked the other night, they look ready to make some noise in this year's event. We'll set the scene for the first round matchup by looking at just some historical stats around Carolina in the NCAA tournament. This is their 54th tournament appearance. That's the second most all time. They've won 134 tournament games, which is the most all time. They've won 6 NCAA tournament titles, and they've made a record 21 Final Fours. That's the most in NCAA tournament history. And under Hubert Davis, they are 8-2. So they've have a track record of, when they make the tournament, of winning and advancing. In all three of his first round wins and his 3 tournament appearances have been in blowout fashion, with what he's done against Marquette last year, against Wagner, and most recently here against San Diego State. So this team has performed and played at a high level under Hubert Davis, despite a lot of criticism that gets hurled his way. Let's now take a look at the opponent, the Ole Miss Rebels. They went 22-11 in the regular season, and they were 10-8 in SEC play. This is their first tournament appearance under head coach Chris Beard. They're 4-2 on neutral floors this season, so they've got a winning record when they play on a neutral environment. Like, of course, this game will be on Friday afternoon. They have 6 players that average double-figure scoring, led by the Virginia Tech transfer Sean Padula. Is 14.9 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3.6 assists. He shoots 43% from the field, 39% from 3 to lead Ole Miss. Jamin Brakefield is their second leading scorer, 10.8 points, 4.4 rebounds, 1.8 assists. He shoots 51% from the field, 33% from 3. And now you got a log jam of 3 guys that all average 10.6 points per game. We'll start with Matthew Morrell, who does just that. 10.6 points, 3.4 rebounds, 1.9 assists. He shoots 42% from the field, 31% from 3. Malik Dia, their second guy that averaged 10.6 points per game. In addition to that, he averages 5.7 rebounds, 0.8 assists, while shooting 46% from the field, 33% from 3. Jalen Murray is their last guy to average 10.6 points per game. With that, 2.2 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He shoots 41% from the field, 38% from 3. And then Dre Davis is the last guy to average double-figure scoring, 10.4 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.3 assists. He shoots 46% from the field, 31% from 3. This is a team that, as I mentioned right there, 6 guys that average double-figure scoring. They average a little over 77 points per game. So pretty much those guys make up the bulk of the scoring production for this team. They shoot 34% from 3. The thing to note about them isn't more the percentage, it's the volume. They're going to shoot it often from behind the three-point line. So Carolina has to be aware of that. But there are some flaws with this group. They're not a great rebounding team. They rank in the 300s in rebounding. They're liable to give up points, which really leads me to believe that this game, I think, has offensive shootout written all over it. And even though, Ole Miss may have more guys that average double-figure scoring, I think there's an argument to be made that Carolina has more offensive firepower. Nonetheless, this will be, I think, one of the more fun games of the first round of the tournament. But this is an opponent that, even though Carolina is favored against, they will pose some challenges for the Heels on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina definitely, as going into this game, coming off of the performance that they had against San Diego State, a lot of people are feeling like this is a team that can go out there, put together the type of performance that they need to be able to move on. But you're right, it is going to be a bit of a challenge because this is a team that can score. And when you're in the SEC, you've got to be able to score the ball at a pretty high rate. 77.2 points per game, which is a really solid number. It's only 92nd in the country, which tells you how high scoring some of these teams around the country really are. The thing that's interesting about them is that they don't really shoot a great percentage from the field, overall. They're 204th from 2-point range, just 212th. And from 3-point range, 174th in terms of percentages. But you mentioned it, a team that does throw up a decent amount of threes. They're a team that's very aggressive when it comes to getting to the line. I mean, opponents against them this year are averaging almost 18 fouls per game. So that's an area that Carolina's got to be very noteworthy of going into this game. They have to make sure that they can defend without fouling because this is a team that likes to draw a lot of fouls. Padula, we know how dangerous he is. We knew that when he was in the ACC, and we saw how good of a three-point shooter he is. I mean, shooting 38% from deep, really good number, and he splits that pretty much half and half with his 2-point field goal attempt. So he is a guy that is very dangerous. Breakfield off the bench, kind of, a comparable guy, I think, to sort of what we saw in Trayvon Spillers for Wake Forest just about a week ago now. And you know that he was a guy that in the first matchup against Carolina was very effective. And then even in that second matchup in that first half, he was a guy that gave Carolina fits when they played Wake Forest. So this will be another guy I think that Carolina has to be aware of. And he comes off the bench, so he's only going to play around 23 minutes on average per game, but they're still going to use him a lot. The thing that Carolina has to their advantage here is that this is a team that does not have a lot of size. They are relatively small. I mean, you've got a 6'9" guy that starts, but then everybody else in the starting lineup is 6'5" or smaller, even their guards, with Padula, who's 6'1", and Jalen Murray, who's 5'11". It matches up very well for Carolina, and this is a team that isn't necessarily the deepest. It's a team that only plays about 7 guys, and even that 7th guy, Davon Barnes, is a guy that plays a little bit, but really not super effective in any of the areas that they kind of need him to be. I mean, 3.2 rebounds per game and 20 minutes per game is okay, but nothing really to write home about. So, I mean, this is really a team that, like Carolina when they made the run in 2022, they are built basically off of 6 guys. And those 6 guys are really good. They can score for them. But that's basically their entire offense in a nutshell, where Carolina's offense is a little more spread out. So I think this is a team that Carolina should be able to attack on the defensive end of the floor. A team that's not really all that great at defending inside of the arc, 241st in 2-point field goal percentage. Teams shoot a lot of threes on them as well, 246th in made threes by opponents at 8 a game. So that's an area that Carolina should be able to attack. And then the foul line, team that allows 15 foul shots or 22 foul shots overall per game, which is 321st, and 15 foul free throw makes, which is 305th in the country. So it's a team that fouls a lot. But Carolina has to be mindful of one thing, and we'll talk about it here at the end. This is an incredibly aggressive team defensively. Yes, they allow a lot of points. Yes, they allow a lot of offensive rebounds. There's areas that Carolina can attack, but this is a team that averages 14.3 turnovers forced per game, which is one of the best marks in the entire country. So Carolina's got to be very mindful of that going into this matchup.
All right, you look at this game from Carolina's perspective. They bring with them a 23-13 record. They, of course, went 13-7 in the ACC. They advanced to this matchup by routing San Diego State last night, 95-68 in the first four. Carolina is 5-4 on neutral floors this season with neutral court wins over Dayton, UCLA, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, and, of course, most recently last night, San Diego State. Therefore, losses, nothing to be upset about. 4 teams that all are in the top 11 of the net. Auburn, Michigan State, Florida, and Duke. All 4 of those teams are top 2 seeds in this year's NCAA tournament. Carolina has 3 players that average double-figure scoring, led by the second-team All-ACC member R.J. Davis, 17.3 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 3.7 assists. He's now shooting 42% from the field and 36% from 3. He's really kind of crawled out of that shooting slump that really hindered him the first, 2.5, 3 months of the season. Ian Jackson, the second leading scorer, 12.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, 0.9 assists. He shoots 46% from the field and 40% from 3. And then Seth Trimble, the last guy to average double-figure scoring, 11.7 points, 5 rebounds, 1.3 assists. He shoots 43% from the field and 28% from behind the arc. So we'll now transition into our discussion topic. Coming out of the win over San Diego State, Carolina's backcourt played at a high level. RJ scored 26 points with 6 of 6 from 3. Elliot Cadeau had double-digit assists. Seth Trimble scored 16 points off the bench. Ian Jackson made 3 threes. You say that it was really the first time collectively that whole entire unit played at a really high level. We know how important guard play is in the month of March. It's what determines teams that make runs and the teams that go home early. We know that Ole Miss has a backcourt that can shoot the ball and fill it up as well as anybody, in the tournament. When you look at this game from Carolina's perspective and you look at the backcourt specifically, which individual player needs to follow up his performance the most from the first 4 in Friday's first-round action?
Oh, man. I mean, this might be the toughest discussion topic we have ever had on the show because, the right answer is that you pretty much need all these guys to follow that up in this game against Ole Miss. I think the most important one, and it probably people will be yelling at the computer or phone, however you're watching us here tonight or however you're listening to us later on. I think it's RJ, man. I think that's the guy that really stirs the drink for Carolina. And if they are going to succeed, it's got to be because RJ is scoring the basketball. We saw last year that when his scoring disappeared in the tournament, that was when Carolina exited. This is a similar notion, I think, this year, even with this team, where you do have some other guards that can step up and score the ball. But, you've seen it, man. Ian Jackson, he's been absent here, these last handful of games. Carolina's found a way to win. Seth Trimble, he's had some performances where he hasn't necessarily been the greatest. Carolina finds a way to win. I think it really comes down to Cadeau or Davis. But I think the difference is that Davis is the guy that really does everything for you scoring-wise. And he's so important sharing the basketball as well. So that's probably why I would lean RJ out of this group. But I think you can make a great case that all of these guys are going to have to show up and play a big role for Carolina if they're going to win a game against a team like Ole Miss who likes to score it at a high level.
Yeah, to me, this answers Elliot Cadeau because when he plays with the confidence he's played at, let's say the last 8 minutes of the Duke game in the ACC tournament semifinal and what he did last night, you see what Carolina is capable of doing. As great as RJ was last night scoring the ball, you could argue that Elliot Cadeau was the most in control of any guy on the floor because he just controlled the game. He knew when he could attack off the bounce and get to the hole. He was, his passing was as crisp and concise as it's been all season long. And he's been the guy we've harped on since the start of the season began. Like when we got told in October that Elliot Cadeau is going to be a player that we didn't recognize from a year ago, I think that all kind of really piqued our interest because he wasn't bad a year ago, but Hubert Davis was selling that this guy had improved and improved in a drastic measure. We saw that the first 3 games of the year, he was averaging over 15 points per game, was doing the stuff in the passing game, and was, had taken a step defensively. And then it all kind of just disappeared. And he kind of just reverted back to the guy we saw at the end of the season last year, where he was unplayable in a season-ending loss to Alabama. We thought the 4-point play at Notre Dame was going to maybe jumpstart him and get him going, and that simply just was not the case. He struggled with confidence all season long, struggled with decision-making. I think he got in his head because he has had no player has had worse luck with foul trouble this year than Elliot Cadeau. And I can attest to that after seeing him pick up 2 phantom fouls last week in the ACC tournament. So, but I think, the last 8 minutes against Duke, it was him and Trimble that was leading the charge. It wasn't R.J. Davis. It wasn't Ian Jackson. It was those 2 guys. And even though Carolina didn't win the game, I do think it brought on a level of confidence for him that he hasn't had this season. And you could tell last night when he pulled up for that first 3, he was shooting to make it. A lot of times he's shooting just to shoot the ball because that's what the offense gets forced into. But that was a shot where he was comfortable and confident to take, and he made it. And his decision-making was a lot better. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this game culminated where he didn't pick up a foul and didn't have to worry about going to sit on the bench before the first media timeout and sit there for 8 to 10 minutes at a time. So, RJ is going to be obviously the most important because he's Carolina's best player. But when Cadeau plays at the level he played at the other night, I think that's what really makes you believe that this team can go on a run in March because he's got the skill and he's got the capabilities, but it's about a mindset and an attitude. And he appears to be in as good a place mentally as he's been all season long. And Carolina will need that to be to show up on Friday afternoon. Let's now get into our keys to the game. We do want to appreciate everybody that's watching live, whether you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or at my personal Twitter page. If you're doing so on Twitter and you haven't given me a follow, do so right there at HTB_Josh, our second live show of the day. And we appreciate all the support that's been shown as we've been covering you here the last couple of weeks with Carolina in the ACC tournament and now in the NCAA tournament. The first key to the game I wrote down was transition and perimeter defense. Ole Miss is going to want to run. They're going to look to push off of misses. They're going to look to push off of makes, and they want to shoot a high volume of threes because for them, like the percentage isn't wowing you. Like 34% isn't going to scare you, but the volume that they shoot it, if they make 12, 13, 14 of them, the percentage kind of becomes null and void because you're still getting, a pretty big number from the outside in terms of makes. So this has to be a game where, Carolina has been aggressive, I think, going to the offensive glass, and they need to be. But they've got to be mindful of if they don't get that offensive rebound, they've got to sprint back defensively, get in the position and guard, and they've got to do as good a job as they can do running them off the three-point line. There are going to be sometimes where Ole Miss just settles for contested threes because their guys can make them. If you've watched them play, they play a very free-flowing, freelance style of basketball where Chris Beard's not going to get mad if their guys isolate themselves and play one-on-one basketball from the perimeter and shoot a bunch of threes. But you can't give up the transition threes where they're catching and shooting in rhythm because those become killers. So, I think this game has shootout written all over it. I think this game has first 1 to 80 written all over it. With that in mind, though, you got to play defense this time of the year. So Carolina's got to sprint back and take away easy transition opportunities and do as good a job as they can running them off the three-point line.
Yeah, the transition stuff is definitely important because that's an area where you can get caught. That's how they get to the foul line as often as they do is because they are running off of those misses and getting to the basket. And that's one thing that teams have been able to do against Carolina this year is Carolina is missing shots or turning the ball over, and teams are able to get out in space and run on them, because at times guys aren't getting back quick enough to defend. That's the thing that you've got to be able to do, because they're going to want to get you in foul trouble by doing that. They want you to chase these plays down and pick up these fouls. So Carolina's got to be smart, but they've got to be aggressive in terms of running down those transition opportunities. And then the three-point opportunities, I mean, it's so tricky because you want to keep them from knocking down the shots from the outside. That's one of the easiest ways that a team can beat you or potentially stick around in a game. But at the same time, you don't want to make it so easy that they're able to get to the paint and, get right to the front of the rim. So this is where Carolina's got to bring that same defensive intensity that they brought to the game against San Diego State. That was a group that came out motivated to put pressure on the ball in the half court. You've got to be able to do that. Again, make it difficult for them to knock down these shots. There's going to be some screening action out on the perimeter to try to free guys up. You got to fight under those screens. You can't go over, or you got to fight over them. You can't go under them, because if you do go under them, then you're going to allow them enough room to be able to knock down shots. Most important guy from this group that you've got to make sure you've got contained. And that's why I want Seth Trimble on him, or I want Drake Powell on him, is Sean Padula. You've got to take care of him. Everything else hopefully will take care of itself. But those two guys should be the primary defender on Padula the majority of the night, because if they are, the way that they've played so far down the stretch of the season, you feel pretty confident that they'll be able to take away that perimeter shot that's been so effective for Padula since he stepped into the college game in 1936.
The second key I have for Carolina is the turnover battle. This is going to be very important, one, because Ole Miss forces a bunch of them. They force over 14 turnovers. Should not surprise you if you're familiar with the type of defense that Chris Beard wants his teams to play with. But more importantly, they also don't turn it over. They turn it over less than 9 times per game. So this isn't a team that just gives the basketball away, which means Carolina's got to be very mindful of that, you can't do what you did the other night, turn it over 4 out of your 6 first possessions, and think that it's going to even itself up. Chances are it's not going to happen, because this team just does not make mistakes with the basketball. I'd like to see Carolina be aggressive and try to speed them up, but if you turn the ball over as many times as they did playing 18 games in the SEC, I find it hard to believe they're going to start turning the ball over now. It's really about you on the other end, making sure you're smart, strong with the ball. When Carolina had their issues last night in their turnovers, you would probably think it was Elliot Cadeau that was the main culprit. And it wasn't him. It was Drake Powell making an errant pass. Jalen Withers trying to make a pass from deep in the corner back out to the wing that you just can't make against teams at this stature in the season. It was sometimes Carolina's bigs not being strong with the ball. And not sealing off their defender and letting the guy fight through them and take the ball and go down the other way. And so I think what might make you what might even things out is that there's going to be a bunch of possessions in this game. So if Carolina does turn it over 8, 10, 12 times, you're going to play enough possessions to kind of make up for it. But, we've seen what Carolina is capable of doing when they don't turn it over. They are functioning at a ridiculous rate right now when they don't give the ball to the other team. Expect Hubert Davis to harp on that leading up to the days of practice and then in the game, because he hasn't been afraid to challenge his team in huddles when they turn the ball over the way they have, like against Duke in the ACC tournament semifinals or in the first 5 minutes the other night against San Diego State.
Well, and you had the game against, what was it? Was it Notre Dame or Wake Forest? One of the two, where they turned the ball over 8 times early in the game. And he basically asked him, how many more times are you going to want to turn the ball over? So, I mean, he is definitely, that's been a focus of his, because that was such an issue for Carolina early in the season. The reason that they are where they are today is in large part because of the turnover issues that they've had, where they've made things just way too easy. He talks so much about the pick 6 turnovers. That's a big thing too, is that, if you're going to turn the ball over, let's at least make sure they're not live ball turnovers if we're turning it over that often. That's one of the important things that Carolina has to be able to do in this game, because this team is going to want to get in transition. And if Carolina isn't, the most efficient team at getting back in transition, it's going to lead to easy points. And we've seen that at times this year that can kill Carolina in games. That can ultimately be the difference. In a game that we think is going to be as close as this one is, that could ultimately end up being the difference. So, it's just about holding on to the basketball, being smart with your passes. We saw as the game went along last night, Carolina became really, really, they were still aggressive, but the passes that they were making were incredibly smart passes. You saw the extra pass from time to time to get it to another guy that's open. But it's really about being intentional with your passing and making sure that you're not making the mistakes like Drake Powell did a couple of times, basically dribbling into a turnover. Carolina's had issues with that this year, even from R.J. Davis at times, dribbling in between two defenders, trying to split them, and he ends up turning the ball over. You've got to avoid situations like that. And if you can do that and cut down on your turnovers, it's going to make it a close game, and it'll be decided by the talent, which I think Carolina has the edge in. You just don't want to give them an area where there's that much of a difference. And that is the biggest difference, as you talked about, when you look at their season averages. That's the reason why they are where they are, more than anything else. Yes, they've scored the ball well, but they've let up a lot of points as well at times. Their biggest thing is that what they've done all year is they've created turnovers from teams, and they have held on to the basketball on the other end better than just about anybody in the country. So, I'd love to say, hey, can Carolina find a way to create those turnovers on the other end of the floor? Look, the way that Seth Trimble and Elliot Cadeau have been pressuring the ball here in recent games, maybe they are able to do that. But that's probably not something that you can count on. So you need to make sure that you're doing your part on the other end.
All right, the last key to the game I have written down is to wear them down on the boards. As I mentioned, this is not a quality rebounding team. They rank in the 300s. Carolina, was I think 104th in total rebounds, but they average nearly 5 to 6 more rebounds per game, more so than Ole Miss does. And that's a pretty big number. That's a significant number that needs to translate onto the floor and onto the box score. Carolina out-rebounded San Diego State last night, 39-28. Big reason why they were able to get to them on the defensive glass. But they also got double-digit offensive rebounds, were able to get some second chance points. When Carolina rebounds the way you expect Carolina to rebound, whether it's Ben Allen Lubin, whether it's Seth Trimble, whoever it is, that's when Carolina really looks the part. And that's when they really look a team that can hang with, play with, beat anybody in the country, i.e. make some noise in the NCAA tournament, which, of course, is the goal right now as an 11 seed. So, you first off, you want to limit them and not let them get offensive rebounding opportunities to get second chance scoring, because for them, if they get offensive rebound, they're going to kick that ball outside, they're going to shoot a three. Mm-hmm. That's going to be their MO. It's always the best time to shoot a three. As much as they love to shoot the outside shot, if they grab an offensive rebound, unless it's right there at the front of the rim, they're going to put it back outside and let it fly. But on the flip side, this needs to be a Ben Allen Lubin game where he gets those 3 to 4 offensive rebounds. He's good for a game. Drake Powell, Seth Trimble impacting the game as well for Carolina, whether they're firmly getting offensive rebounds or back tapping it out there to those guards. I think if Carolina can generate, 12 to 18 second chance points in this game, that'll go a real long way to getting the point total where they need to get to if they want to win, because this has, as I've mentioned, I think shootout written all over it. I think first team to 80 is probably going to win this game. They average 77 points per game. Carolina averages a bit over 81. So I think there's going to be points scored left and right. If Carolina can generate some second chance points in the half court, I think that goes a real long way of helping them find a pathway to victory. So, in this month and a half stretch, Carolina has rebounded the ball very, very well. They out-rebounded all of their opponents in the ACC tournament. They out-rebounded San Diego State in the first 4. That needs to carry over Wednesday afternoon to Ole Miss, because I think if they can wear them down on the glass, it could hopefully maybe wear them down defensively in the half court and get the type of offensive production they'll need to win this game.
Yeah, and I think they should be able to do that. The good news is that because of how bad Ole Miss is on the glass, I mean, you look at opponents, they're averaging 37 rebounds per game against this group. It's their Achilles heel, is that they just cannot rebound. And so Carolina should be able to take advantage of that. Offensive rebounds. I mean, look, honestly, I hope we don't have to have that many offensive rebounds, because I hope that the guards are just shooting lights out where there aren't those opportunities, very similar to what we saw in the first 4 game against San Diego State, where it wasn't that Ben Allen Lubin wasn't active enough on the offensive glass. There weren't a lot of rebounding opportunities. You'd love to see that in this game again, where Carolina just shoots that well. But if they don't, yeah, you want him to be able to pull down those offensive rebounds. You know, Jalen Washington, if he's out there on the floor, that's an area at 7 foot, taller than just about anybody that's going to be on the floor, unless Ole Miss rolls out John Bowl, their 7'2" big man that hasn't really played much this season. I don't think they're going to test that out in this game. So this is one of the rare games where Jalen Washington should be able to have a height advantage. And even a guy like Jalen Withers, you'd like to see him sort of crash the glass in certain scenarios and get those offensive rebounds. We've seen Drake Powell do a good job of that as well from the wing. So I think those two guys could be very key for that. And then defensive rebounding wise, I mean, dude, Jalen Withers has been a monster at different times during this winning stretch for Carolina, where they've won 9 out of 11. You would expect that, you know, judging off of that first 4 performance, he was locked in as a rebounder last year during the NCAA tournament. And I think that he's going to be locked in again this year during the NCAA tournament. And you look, I mean, Ole Miss is allowing 27.1 defensive rebounds per game. I mean, there are teams in the country that don't even allow that many defensive rebounds total. Now, those are the best or total rebounds. Now, those are the best teams in the country, but that's still an unbelievably huge number and ranks 10th worst in the entire country. That means that Carolina should be able to take advantage of that on missed shots. Shouldn't be many offensive rebounding opportunities in this game, and you need to be able to get out in transition, because this is the thing. Ole Miss is going to think that they want to run with Carolina, but they can find out really quickly that that isn't necessarily the recipe for success. The best way to be able to do that, well, it's forced turnovers, which is not going to be that easy against this team. But the other way to do that is to rebound those misses and get out running. I think that's what you're going to see from Carolina in this game against an Ole Miss team that is a weak rebounding team.
All right, we've set the scene for Friday's first round tournament game. That game will come your way, as I mentioned, 4 p.m. over on TNT. And as I said earlier, also, Carolina maybe the 11th seed, but they're the favorite to win the game. They're a 1.5 point favorite, according to ESPN Bet. And according to ESPN's matchup predictor, they give Carolina a 56.3% chance to win the game. Coming off the win over San Diego State, Carolina still hasn't gotten, I think, the appreciation that they deserve from the national media. A lot of the national media is still doubling down on the fact that Carolina doesn't deserve to be in the tournament, and Tuesday night doesn't mean anything, which I think is great for this team that definitely took the media backlash personal, and they play with a chip on their shoulder in a huge way on Tuesday night. So Chris Beard's probably not liking all the energy around Carolina coming into the game. With that in mind, I'll let you go first. Who wins the game and why?
Yeah, I think Carolina wins this game. I had that in my bracket even before Carolina took on San Diego State, but they looked a lot better than I thought they were going to look. I thought they would be incredibly motivated. I did not expect the skull dragging that Carolina gave to San Diego State. That was an unbelievable performance. It's a team that is clearly motivated. And yeah, basically people are saying, even after they said, if Carolina, would Carolina better win this game because they have to justify the fact that they were put in the field. Now they're saying, no, it doesn't matter. Nothing that you do will justify the fact that they put you in the field. You still don't deserve to be here. So I think that's going to be extra fuel for Carolina in this game. And I just think there's so many areas that you can attack with this Ole Miss team. I get it, man. They're a really good high-scoring team, and I think they're going to be able to score the ball in this game. But I think the way that Carolina has been bringing the intensity on the defensive end of the floor, I think you'll see it again in this game. It's just going to be a team that's going to be able to knock down more shots from the outside. But I do think Carolina is able to limit them there, and I think they dominate on the glass. I think they dominate inside. I don't think they're going to have many answers on the interior for Carolina. And we saw that's a way that Carolina can win, is by getting to the paint and being able to score. They did it against Wake Forest. I think they can do it again in this game, and I think they're going to have a better shooting day from the outside than they did in that game against Wake Forest. I think Carolina finds a way to win. Don't get it wrong. It's once again, in my mind, going to be close, but I like Carolina somewhere in that 5 to 7 point range to take down Ole Miss and move on to the round of 32.
Yeah, when we got the bracket on Sunday and we saw where Carolina would be going if they won their first 4 matchup, I got excited. I love the matchup with Ole Miss. I think we match up very favorably against them. I think they want to play a pace that we want to play at, although I think we could play at a much better pace. I think we have become a better defensive team than where we were a month and a half ago. The way Carolina defended the other night, if they defend that way, this team will play very long into the month of March. I think Carolina is more physical, can wear them down on the glass, and I think there's just more motivation. There's more fire with them, Carolina, right now. Like, as happy as they were after the win last night, they didn't seem satisfied. They didn't seem content. They look hungry, and they look like they're on a mission to really just give the entire media the middle finger and do what they got to do to validate why they're here. And if they beat a Ole Miss team, that'll be another step in the right direction that really says out loud that Carolina deserved to make the tournament over some teams that did not make the field of 68. I think Carolina wins. I think RJ continues to play at a high level, knowing that every time he takes the floor now, it very well could be his last. I think Cadeau builds off his performance. I think Trimble's in a different zone right now that he's so locked in, he's going to do whatever it takes to give his team a chance. Van Allen Lubin is playing at a consistent high level up front, and Drake Powell and those guys at that 4, the 3 and the 4 spot, they continue to grow and get better every time on the floor. I think it's a fun game. I think you see a lot of points. I think you see a lot of threes. And ultimately, I think Carolina emerges victorious and will advance into the second round of the 2025 NCAA Tournament. No matter what happens, we'll have you covered here on the podcast, but of course on the website, HeelToughVlog.com. The preview of the game will be made available for you on game day, so it'll go up on Friday morning, so be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, we'll be back after the game with the recap as well as I continue to take you through the basketball season. Anthony has you covered on the football side of things, recruiting, spring practice, whatever it is. We've got you covered with the two most prominent programs on campus, Carolina basketball and Tar Heel football. Make sure you visit the website every single day for the latest and the best coverage of both of those programs. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find us. Every major podcasting platform, simply search the Four Corners Podcast and we'll pop up. There, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any editions of the show throughout the remainder of the basketball season. I'll probably be Saturday morning before we're back recapping what happens in Friday's action. We both have obligations at work for the tournament, and then just given the time Carolina plays around all the other first-round action, probably be Saturday morning before we get on here to talk about what happened. So make sure you make yourself familiar with these three destinations: the Heel Tough Blog Facebook page, the Heel Tough Blog YouTube channel, and my personal Twitter page, HTB_Josh, because we'll be back live talking about Carolina's result, whether it's a win or a loss. Well, that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I do want to thank Anthony once again for hosting with me. We want to thank all of you for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.